Today's guest has been a lifelong resident of upstate New York. For 25 years, he was a successful landscaping business with his brother, as well as a sports coach at the local high school. Then one November night, that all changed. Every night after work, he went for a walk. On the night of November 15th, 2009, while walking on Hammertown Road in Pine Plains, New York, a freak accident would change the course of his life forever. The darkened road would reveal something extraordinary. Today, he is an inspirational speaker and an award-winning author of the book Miracle on Hammertown Road. Let's welcome today's guest, Jim Bubba Bay. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I saw some of your interviews on YouTube, and I was fascinated with what took place that particular evening for yourself. And I've always been fascinated with stories that expand upon our level of consciousness, that make us go a little bit beyond where the comfort zone of everyday life, or where we normally don't really get into. And your story is very intriguing, specifically, I guess you'd call it a near-death experience, and what you encountered during that evening. Maybe you could just give the audience a little bit of a background of what your spiritual interests were, if there were any, if there were any connections to the spirit realm prior to this particular incident.
Well, the funny thing about it is, I explained my spirituality before my fall. You could fit on the size of a grape. I didn't. I mean, I just didn't know about all the shaman and the Reiki and the law of attraction. I didn't know any of that stuff, and I was a Christian, and I called myself a Christian. I would go to church on Easter and Christmas, and other than that, I didn't go to church. I'm a believer. I was always a believer, and I also was a believer in near death and all that. I just didn't. I never explored it, I guess, is part of it, and I just, so that's where I was. The one thing that changed for me, I moved to Arizona for a year. My son died out there, and we moved back. But on the move, there was a box I packed that had the Prayer of Jabez by Bruce Wilkinson in it, and I didn't put it in there. It was a box I packed myself, and it was all metal detecting stuff. And in the box was this little book, and I was struggling because it was the first time I was without a job. And anyway, I opened it up to read the metal detecting stuff, and this little book was in there, and we never owned a copy. I don't know where it came from. So
Wow.
why I bring that up is I read it. I read it so many times, and it changed my prayer life. I started to pray and stuff like that. So I started to do daily praying. And when I read that prayer, I was like, "Here I am, God. I'm ready to do your work. I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm ready to do it." So, and that's about where I was, right about in that spot. Like I said, I didn't know any others. I mean, I might have heard shaman in a movie or something like that, but I could never tell anybody what it was all about or anything like that. So it was pretty small, I have to say. My
Yeah.
faith was big, but my knowledge was small.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that sometimes we're faced with getting hit with a feather or getting hit with a brick in order to awaken us to this spiritual path, or to open ourselves up. So
Yeah.
many, so many of the people that I interview and I speak to who have these experiences are somehow, in my opinion, or I guess you can reiterate on it, is that they're supposed to be on the path of a spiritual path in some capacity, and something happens in their life to maybe put them on this path. Um, and
Right.
your experience, which you'll share, right now, is a testimony to that. So maybe you could explain what happened that specific evening in November.
Sure. I'll give you the quicker version. There's you can get real detail and you
I
can add
understand.
whatever
I understand.
you want or ask me. But anyway, so basically what happened was I love metal detecting, as I said, and I got separated from my wife, and my kids were, they would come see me in the weekend stuff, and so I decided that, and I was depressed. I'm, like missing my kids and all that stuff, and I said, well, I really want to start walking again and metal detect. So I set a day aside to metal detect every weekend and stuff. So I had been out detecting all day, and what's important about that is I came home, my mom and dad was visiting me, and I rent the house from my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. and they were visiting me. They live in the same town, but they decided they come stay with me because they were living in Vegas part of the time. Anyway, so they were out. I'm an awful cook, and I made something, like tuna fish kind of stuff, and I wasn't feeling well. So I was just going to go for a walk that night, a little walk to make me feel better before I went to bed. So it was Sunday night. And so I went out for a walk. I didn't plan on doing any big walking. I walked 6 miles a day at the time after landscaping all day and stuff. And so I just went out for a little stroll. I don't normally walk around my house. I had just moved here about, I don't know, a year ago, I guess. And it's a dead end road. But I said I'll just go for a little walk, and it's a town road, so there's no street lights, but what's gonna happen on a town road with no street lights? Hardly any cars go by.
Right,
So I
right.
went for a walk, and I started going towards the opening. I don't live far from the opening or the entrance of the main road, the road to the main road. Anyway, so I walked that way. It was dark out. It was about 7:30, something like that. And I there was this car on the side of the road, and they were real rowdy. So I believe they were drunk. So I said, well, I don't want to run into them, and they don't want me to scare them and like that. So I turned around, I started walking down, and I got down to where my house was, and I said, I still don't feel well. Maybe I'll go a little further. And there's a little hill in front of my house, a little hill. It's not big at all, but it's little. I said, I'll go down a little hill. I get down there, turn around, come back. That was the plan. So I ended up walking past my house down the hill. I started to feel a little better, and I turned around, and I especially at night when it's dark, I walk towards traffic all the time, and so I crossed the road, started heading up the hill, or started heading towards the hill and my house, and car lights were coming down the road. And because it's a dead end road, a lot of cars come down. And at the time, there's a house built now past my house. But at the time, a lot of cars would come down the road, turn around in our driveway, which is because it's a landscaping and house, so it's a big entrance, and they would turn around and go. So I didn't know whether they were going to turn around or so I saw the lights, and so I said, well, let me get off the road. And when I walk at night and there's no traffic lights or anything, I get off the road and I stop. And so that's what was my intentions. I don't know if I don't think the car came down. I think it was another one of those cars that said, oh, I'm on a dead end road. I better turn around. Anyway, so I stepped off the side of the road to stop. And the next thing you know, I slipped. And the next thing you know, I was free falling through the air.
Wow.
And it ended up afterwards, it was 14 feet down, and I landed on my left head on rocks. And my left head, then my left shoulder, my left rib area, and then my legs hit last. And then I was knocked unconscious. I don't know how long it was. Could be a minute, could be, however long it was. I could be a second, but I just got knocked out, and I came to, and so that
Okay.
was an initial stage of the fall.
All right. Maybe you could just
So then,
fill the audience in a little bit of your two children, the two boys, what happened to them, and then we'll go back to where you're at now in terms of
sure, sure.
yeah.
Sure. Back in my one son, my two older boys are my stepsons. They don't never met their father. They call me Jimmy to my. They called me Jimmy to my face, which I wanted them to. And then they would say my dad was coming to get me, kind of thing. It was a nice setup. I thought, they never met him. I was their dad. They treated me like their dad, but I said, you don't have to. You can call me Jimmy, whatever, like that. And they did that. It was great. And so they were twins, and we had Robert and John, and then we had my son Logan, and then we decided one more, my wife and I at the time. Like we had the three kids, but biologically you only had one, and it's like putting all your eggs in one basket. So we decided to try again, and my son James, he was conceived and everything, and then 23 and a half weeks. He lived 10 days. He was born premature, 1 pound, 4 ounces, and he lived 10 days and died. He couldn't make it. So that was, yeah, 2000. And then it's kind of, I say this and I don't know, I'm no expert in anything, any of this stuff. It just stuff happened to me. But I, at the time, we didn't know one of my older sons, Robert, had kidney disease from birth. So he was very sick in the end. He got very, very sick. Uh, One doctor did a biopsy. The guy retired and he was like, I don't know how many he did. And my son Robert, there was only five in all his career that he never could do a biopsy because the kidneys were like rubber. So he couldn't even get a needle in his kidneys. So he lived, so anyway, soon after my son James died, Robert was diagnosed with kidney disease. And why I bring that up is both they pretty much said our son James, you don't know, but there was a chance he was gonna, need some special needs or special help for a while. And then our other son Robert obviously started needing a lot of help. And I don't think we could have. I don't know. I guess you would have done what you would have had to do, but it was like maybe God was like, okay, that's quite the handful, And I'm not saying he made James die, but it kind of like it would have been a lot. But so because there was a lot of effort put into Robert and a lot of traveling because he was he was, I forget how old he was. He was a young teenager, so we had to go to a special pediatric kidney thing up in Albany, New York. And so anyway, he lived he moved to Arizona. We moved to Arizona for a year, and he was going to diesel mechanic school. And then my ex-wife found him dead in his apartment after 4 days. And it's all part of the story.
Right,
It
right.
kind of came full circle the night that I fell and everything.
Yeah, maybe you could
So
now elaborate on what takes place once you this accident happens and how the two children, the two
sure,
boys play into this.
sure. I woke up, like I said, I don't know how long it was. I was unconscious, something, and I woke up and I felt this liquid kind of in my head. Of course, I felt the pain, but so I felt liquid, which ended up being blood at the time. So I was I I fell all on the left side, so my right side never hit the ground. So my right arm, which is my dominant hand, which to be honest with you, helped the fact that I didn't break, hurt that arm. But I reached across my head and my fingers went in my skull, and I knew I was in trouble when my fingers went right in my head. So I knew I was pretty, the pain alone told me that, but then I was like, wow, I got to head in because
Yeah.
I couldn't figure it out for the first moment, and then I did that, and then I realized I was in deep trouble. Of course, the pain was through the roof, and I could say I broke 26 fractures. So I was, I fractured my skull, brain bleed, concussion, traumatic brain injury. I broke my left scapula. I broke 11 ribs, seven on the left, four on the right. I broke C7 two ways, and I broke from T12 to T1. I broke nine of those, and two of them I broke two ways. So it was 23 bones with 26 fractures. And so you can imagine the pain I was in.
Yeah, yeah.
So, of course, I didn't know at the time. So, anyway, so uh, I never said this before, but I guess my first instance was to try to yell out for help. I knew I was in trouble, so I yelled. And again, it's a dead end road, so I'd scream, "Please help me, God! Please help me!" And I know I mentioned God, I really do. I think maybe a lot of us do, even maybe we don't believe it. When push comes to shove,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you know. So I yelled and yelled. Uh, I don't know how many times I yelled, but after a little while, I realized that uh, it wasn't going anywhere really far because with 11 broken ribs, I could hardly breathe.
Yeah,
And I realized that it was getting silent. Like the effort was like in it. I wasn't really yelling that loud. So I decided that was, you know, no good no more. So I laid on, of course, life started to go in front of my head, face, and in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm really death really at that point started to become an option. Uh, it just, I don't know if I was paralyzed. I never thought, because I don't know I broke my back and everything like that. I know I landed on my head and I felt the pain, but I don't know if I'm paralyzed or nothing at this point. I'm just laying on rocks. And thankfully, I fell at a good time because part of the year it's a river. And I probably would have drowned in even a little bit of water because I was kind of like face down and I don't know how long I was unconscious, like I said. So there was a chance of that, but I did fall. It was dry at the time. So that was good. So then then my, head went to, my kids in heaven. Uh, if you believe in heaven, my one son was 10 days old. My other son was 18 years old. There's a good shot that's where they're going to be. Me, I don't know if I'm going to make it there, but I don't know. But, so I thought of them, and then I thought of my kids here, my family, my brother, my sister, and my parents, and all my, my kids and my nephews, and just the whole everything. And I don't know what people, when they face death, I don't know if it's true with everybody. For me, it happened because I had both. I felt I had both, and I didn't even include, people that died before me, like my grandparents and all that. I just thought of that at the time, my kids and stuff. And so then my son Robert came to me because it was really a key moment for me. Is that my ex-wife, like I said, found them dead after 3 or 4 days. It's the worst because it's her, biological son.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't wish that on any mother to have to find their son dead like that.
right.
And so I felt so bad, and her and I have never talked like what she saw. Of course, but we never talked because it just was not a subject you talk about. So then I thought, man, if I die right here, it's going to be bad. Whoever finds me. So I said, well, maybe I could do something. Maybe I could, get somewhere or do something. So I decided I would. At that point, I figured out that there was a wall like to one side of me, like a field, and I'm like, well, I guess I came from that wall area, and so then I said, well, and then I remembered that I was walking on a road. It all started coming to me like, hey, you were walking on the road. Now you're in the cold. It was like the world opened up and swallowed me. Ended up being a, formal drainage culvert ditch. And so I decided I would, my next move was, you know, I thought I was going to die. I wasn't dead. I had nothing like that at the time. I was, still hanging in there crying, and blood was all mixing. And I said, well, if I can get to that road I came from, I could die on the road, along the road. So that was my goal. I literally went to climb the hill. Again, like I said, I don't know what was broken in me and everything like that. I mean, you're not supposed to move when you got a head injury or break your back.
Right,
And the
right,
crazy things I did that night, it's just incredible. Just, so that was my goal.
right.
So I ended up where I fell, people walked up where I crawled up the hill, people healthy have tried to get up the hill. And it blows their mind that I actually went up the hill with all that damage and made it to the top of the hill. It's a
Wow.
short hill, but it's steep.
Right, right, right.
And
Did you feel any force behind you, helping you, assisting you in this process?
you know, when I people, the Christian people and all that believe in angels and all that God's always with us. So people say, oh, that I had help then, but it, it was all me. I thought it was all me. No one was around at the time. There was no angels. It was a struggle. I mean, if I had help, boy, they didn't help that much because it was just a struggle. It
Yeah,
took a while. I mean, I would move like a foot up the hill. I was crawling on my stomach and my arm. Thankfully, I had my one arm, and I was crawling, trying to kick my feet. Now, another blessing was I never broke any ankle or no leg. I didn't break my leg, so that was a saving grace. And I just struggled up the hill, and I would fall back a foot or two, and then I'd get up, and stuff like that. So if I had helped at the time, they didn't help me too much because
yeah,
it was,
yeah.
man, what an effort,
Okay,
you
so what?
know.
So
But I'm okay if people say, the people, it was there. It just at
no,
the
well,
time it was,
if a person were unconscious and then they knew they were unconscious and then they were in a different place from the place they were before, then I guess you could assume that some force was taking part in your mobility. But
right.
as it relates now to you now climbing up this hill, uh, at what point do you have the encounter with your two deceased sons?
So what happened was I made it to the hill, to the top of the road, near the road, and I came upon the log. And the log's a real key thing to the story. It's incredible. The log, all these near-death stories, there's always a aha moment, and it it's like, well, how did they know about that, or how did they know about that? There's always one moment where it makes you really hard to doubt anybody, because it's like, okay, how did they really know that and stuff? So, I've always loved them. I especially loved, and it's not because it happened to me, but I especially love the ones that you know, they have uh uh, they have to do it all themselves. They have to, like, there's no help showing up, and they do it all
Right.
themselves. So it's been it was so anyway, so I got to this log, and I was laying on the side of, the road, and I laid in this log, and I said, I made it. So I can, I made that was my goal, to get to the road, and now I can die. Because I had nothing left in me. The climbing the hill, that's why I don't know if I really had help, because I was done at the road. I was done. I was ready. I closed my eyes, and I just laid on the log and said,
What did
now someone can find me in the morning.
what did you say to yourself when you were at the log? What was the self-talk? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was done, and I said I was very happy that I climbed the hill. Uh, Whoever found me, I felt bad for whoever found me, but because of course I couldn't see myself, but I was just a bloody mess,
Yeah.
and I just said, okay, now I'm gonna die, and so I can die. I mean, that climbing, it's a dead end road. There's not a lot of houses. There's not a lot of options of, and
Right.
and cars going by. So I just figured I was dead. So I closed my eyes, and my faith was gone, my hope was gone, my everything was gone. But I never died. I never died. I never totally died. And another incredible thing is, I went to speak on a panel at Ian's conference in Colorado, and I first got there real quick. I first got there, and everybody was like going to heaven, hanging out with Moses and Jesus, and breaking bread, and going here and going there. And when I was first there, the first day I was there, it just I felt out of place, because I never went anywhere. I was
Right.
just, Hammertown Road in Pine Plains, New York. So I felt out of place. And then this one woman, it's quite a story, but it was anyway, I met her kind of a interesting way,
Right.
and she proceeded to tell me her story about, not going anywhere and staying. And she'd been going to this conference for like 25 years.
Right.
And I said, well, I guess I do belong. And then I started meeting people that had, you know, in-body experiences, So yeah, so I laid in the log, and I closed my eyes, and that was my goal. And I did it, I didn't plan on anything after that, but that was what I was thinking about, my kids in heaven, and my kids living here. I started to, like, really seriously miss my kids here living and stuff, because I thought that was it, it
Right.
was going to be, I was going to be able to see them and stuff. So that's when the incredible happened, So,
Yeah.
what
Share
happened
that.
next? Yeah,
Yeah.
so what happened next was I ended up, my eyes were closed, and I say it's like, when we were kids, our eyes are closed, we overslept. They turn on the light bulb, your parents turn on the light in the room, and then you wake up from the light on your eyes. And so I ended up felt that light in my eyes, and I opened my eyes, and it was just amazing. The whole there's no lights, there's no street lights, no nothing, and it just started to get really, really bright. This really bright, colorful kind of light and stuff, and it got brighter and brighter and brighter, and started surrounding me. And from this light came this figure approaching me, and I was just like starting to be in awe. And I'm like, the first thought is like, wow. Well, again, I don't know if I'm going to heaven, but I'm like, wow, if this is how you go to heaven, this is quite the way to go. Because I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
So
Right.
as it got closer and closer, uh, this grandfatherly figure, approached me, got nearer and nearer and nearer, and he had a robe and all that stuff. And then as it got more into focus, to the one side of him was my two boys in heaven.
Wow.
Robert and James were there. looking like I knew him, look, hell, like the way I know. And all this is what I could understand. And going back to your first question about my, spirituality and stuff like that, if an orb or if a light or any other kind of thing like that showed up, I'd be dead in that log because I wouldn't know anything. I wouldn't know what's going on, or
Right.
I wouldn't. That's the knowledge I didn't have. So the knowledge I have and what I grew up with is that God's a grandfatherly figure, or Jesus, or what the grandfatherly God, and and all that stuff. So that's what I understood, and I really believe God's spirit gives you what you need at the time you need it, so you can interpret it your way. Because if it, like I said, if it came an orb, or just if it was a bright light, I yeah, I would still be on the log, or I'd be dead by now.
Yeah.
I'm
But
happened in '09.
yeah, let me ask you this. So you're in this state, you see this orb, you see this light with your two children. Are they, first of all, are they solid or are they translucent? Can you see through them? Um,
No, they're solid. It's solid. That's it. All came more solid to me and stuff like that.
okay.
Uh, it was more of a solid kind of figure. And but the light was, it just got really bright, and then ended up getting pretty close to me,
Yeah.
and then I had a conversation. I never talked to my kids; they were just there. Never, and like again, even at that point, I said, "Oh wow, this is quite a way to go to heaven." Maybe I don't know. I really don't know. I didn't know where I was going. I mean, I've never been a bad guy like that. I just, didn't go to church. I didn't do, I just did the normal stuff. Unless
Right,
when I
right.
was younger, I did for a while, and then so then we started to have a conversation, and it was from within. It wasn't like you and I talking out loud and stuff like that. But one
Telepathic.
of the things is
It
that,
was a
what's that?
telepathic communication?
Yeah, yeah, kind of like within, yeah, kind of like that kind of talk. That's the way it happened for me. Uh, so, they say I've done a bunch of video, interviews and stuff, and then everybody makes their own titles and stuff like that, and
Right.
I'm okay with it. I met God, and I claim I met God because that figure said my son Jesus to me, and but how do I know if it was God using Jesus's body talking through Jesus? I'm not an expert,
Right.
So when the Christians, most of them say you can't see God, the Bible, I guess, says you can't see God. So I say, okay, well, either way, I talked to God, and maybe
Right.
he was using Jesus, but I don't know. I'm no expert. I'm far, far from an expert. This is just what happened to me,
Well, you
and this is what.
right. In terms of this experience, did you have a decision to make in terms of resisting, surrendering to the information or this encounter itself? In other words, there was no sense of fear. Was there a sense in terms of not in terms of relief that you saw this? Was it What was your exact feeling when you this came into contact with you?
I I was in awe. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, I was in awe. My pain, my blood didn't stop, my pain didn't stop, but I was in such awe that it all seemed like it stopped, you know. So I was just like in awe, and I just, yeah, I was as dead as I never died. Like I said, I had a foot in the death's door and a foot here still. That's the way I say it. And I just was like, man, this is, the way that happens or whatever. So
Yeah.
I was ready, I guess, ready for whatever will come next.
Yeah.
And then the conversation started, and I don't know the Bible. I I've learned some, here a little bit now since my thing and stuff, and I know some story. And as a kid, I knew a little story, but I don't know the Bible. I couldn't quote one scripture to help anybody or tell them where to go in the Bible or what book comes before what book and everything like that. Of course, I heard stuff and never sticks with me and stuff. So anyway, but the reason why I don't know the Bible is I always questioned, if it's God's word and it's supposed to be this wonderful thing, why is all this killing done over the Bible? Over the Bible, in the Bible, just everywhere. It's like, it's like, why is all this killing? And
Right.
so it's been my biggest question my whole life. And if you meet Jesus, God, the higher spirit, whatever like that, and you have your number one question, and you meet that person that can answer it, or that being that can answer it, they're going to answer that question. And that was, for me, that was one of the main things that got answered, is that, like the Romans, like they all just, every power that uses the Bible and they change it their way, eventually they don't, some people, they don't die, they just lose power, and
Right.
they're
Right.
not in power no more and stuff like that.
Right.
So, but God in Bible continues on, and it stays, continues on stuff. It's,
So what was what was
church
the
going's a lot less nowadays. What's that?
what was the direct telepathic messages that were being transported to you in this encounter?
Well, that was one of them. That
Okay,
was a big one. Is
so
that
you asked that question? You asked God?
no?
Okay. Tell me.
He answered it for me. That's why I said, like, if you had
Okay.
your whole life you had that question, and then you meet the authority, it's like you're always like, I wonder where Jim Bubba Bay always met. I know this sounds crazy. Where was he born? You know what I mean? And you couldn't find out. Then you meet me. It's weird. I probably would
Right,
say,
right.
hey, I
Oh,
was born. It would
wow.
come up in conversation.
So
You know?
this was an ongoing theme in your life. This question that you had inside yourself that was answered at this particular moment.
Oh yeah, my brother and I, my brother, I have a question. My brother, we drive and we landscape together. We drive down the road. I question him. I question whoever I could question. And then after I got a little older, it just was something within me. I didn't go
Yes.
asking people no more and like that. I didn't ask my pastor if I saw a minister. I didn't go and ask them. I just but it was like, okay, well, if this is really the word and supposed to be peace and good stuff, why is all this killing and stuff? So I know maybe it's a bad reason not to read the Bible or not to know it or whatever like that, but that was my reason. So
What was the answer? What was the answer that he gave?
he gave, like, he gave me the example, like, he didn't say Romans, but he says those that use the Bible for their own good,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they may be in power for a time, hundreds of years, whatever, but eventually they're not, and they lose power,
Oh, okay.
and the Bible and God continues on.
That's so interesting.
You
Wow.
know,
So that question was
yeah,
deeply
yeah,
answered.
yeah. It was very deeply answered,
So
very deeply answered.
did it give you the inspiration to go further from the injury that you were feeling to know that somebody knew you that you had
He,
some
yeah, and then he told me that I forgot to say this was a brief meeting. It could have been a minute or two, could have been 5 minutes. I didn't go anywhere. It just was what I needed at the time. And yes, he told me I had things to do for him. That and God always seems to use those that you got. Not to go back, but I lost two kids. I bankrupt, foreclosed. I lost three homes. I was, devastated in all different ways. And here he is, shows up for me, and I'm just landscaper, and my family owns a gas station. There's nothing special about me. I coached, school and, sports and stuff. I'm just a regular old guy. And I had all this stuff, bad luck. I battled weight all my life. That's where the Bubba comes from. And, so and then he proceeded to tell me I got things to do for him, and I'm not going to die. That he didn't say, I'm not, you're not going to die, you just got things to do for you and stuff. So I was like, wow. So I was in awe, and it was an incredible time. Like I said, there wasn't people. Sometimes people are like, wow, did you tell everything? There was a little bit personal stuff that I just don't share. It's kind
right.
of like a little bit, but there wasn't this big long conversation either. So and that was the main thing I got out of it at the time. Since then, I've gotten some other things taught to me. So anyway, so
Yeah, we'll go into that.
after the brief meeting and stuff, yeah. So after the brief meeting, he left. God and my kids left. It was like a candle walking away, and then poof, and then but I never got told what to do afterwards. Like, ambulance is going to come by, or a car, or something like that, or I didn't get told how I was going to live. So I know this sounds symbolic, but I, I knew something was, I had to go do something. So I looked and I saw a little light in the house, and it happened to be my neighbor's house, who I never met before, but because I just moved here not too long ago, before this accident. So I said, that's where I got to go. I know it sounds crazy and symbolic, but that's where the light. So I tried to get up, fell once, couldn't get the gravity on all them broken bones was worse than climbing a hill. And I got up. I knew I couldn't fall again, so I got up, and I ended up walking 200 some feet to my neighbor's house. Now people say God, angels are with me, God's with me. It doesn't matter. I was just in a lot of pain. If they were with me, that's fine. I never claimed that anybody was with me at that time or any angels, stuff like that. But that was quite a long walk too. But I knew if I and so I got to the woman's house and I knocked on her door and I asked her to call 911. She was afraid for her life. Only from that, it looked like Freddy Krueger got a hold of me or something really, really bad happened in the neighborhood on a Sunday night. So she called the ambulance and 911 came, and I was so bad they were going to fly me in a helicopter, and I had to go in an ambulance because it was too foggy in the end. But while I was there at this log, that log, it was so bright. There's no moonlight. There's no sunlight. There's no traffic light. There's no street light. There's no light at all. No car light. And I was able to see a log I was laying on had no bark and branches. It was like an old telephone pole, kind of like log.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was able to see I'm laying on this. So they took me down, induced a coma. Uh, the whole world in a coma was a whole nother world. It was an incredible world. Maybe that's where my spirituality started to blossom. I don't know. It was it was it was all drug induced, because but it was a whole different world. I had a Skirko friend named Sam. I would visit him down by the field, pack a lunch, and we sit on the chairs and we talk sports and news, and it was so real and vivid to me. So
Wow.
every day, I think I was in a coma 7 days. So every day, I hung out with Sam. I know it sounds crazy and weird, but boy, that he was there for me when you know, so,
What
but it's
information?
all drug induced,
What information did Sam pass on to you while you were in the state?
He just, you know, he kind of talks to me sometimes about faith. I didn't share too much about what he said to, like, even in the book or other interviews, but we talked a lot about faith. Um, he talked about his family. He was proud of his family, and I was too. It's kind of like it was almost like a little looking in the mirror, kind of like some of the stuff I
Yes, yes.
felt or I thought. He was passing on, and but he what I think it started to do a little spiritual for me is like, here's a scarecrow figure. It's not, it's as friendly can be. People are like, oh, scarecrow. No, this was as friendly as you can get be. He was, and this is so anyway. It started to spiritually like, wow, there's a lot out there. And there was some bad things in the coma that I thought a couple nurses were trying to kill me and stuff like that. So that's why I said it's all drug induced. But it was a whole
Well,
different
there
world.
are people who had near-death experiences who've been in comas and have had contact with alien beings as well, who've passed on information that was completely relevant to their present and future life that was about to take place after their accident. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
difficult. It's difficult for, I guess, for you to completely express it in a way where doubters would then, come down on information that seems like unreal to somebody. But a person like myself and people who listen to these types of programs who've been in contact and you yourself know that path, they don't doubt the information that you're passing on, and I don't doubt it. And I find it very interesting and inspiring to be able to hear the story and the courage it takes to be able to expose a part of and be vulnerable to show the human experience, some ongoing question you have, and then it's answered by this godly figure in this NDE or out of body experience that you had, and your two stepchildren show up. Uh, in this moment to comfort you. Uh,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
very interesting. So you're in this coma. You come out of the coma, and first of all, what are your physical injuries that you take with you after the accident? And then we'll get into the spiritual gifts.
Sure. So it's funny. I never in the book it says this, but it was like days I was out of the coma, and no one told me how bad I was hurt. And this one nurse, the name's in the book. It's been 15, 14 years now. Anyway, Robert. His name's Robert. So it's late at night. I love ginger ale. He would get me diet ginger ale because I was always thirsty because I had a breathing tube, feeding tube. I mean, I had the works, you know. And he 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 it's so funny because he didn't know the story himself. And he says he would go to me, you want a little bit of heaven? And that meant that ginger ale.
Right,
Because
right,
one
right,
time I drank it and I said, wow, this is like heaven. So he didn't like, oh, you want no that he'd be like, you want a little bit of heaven? He would put his head in the room. Go, you want a little bit of heaven? And one night he was there. I think he was there quite often for me. That must have been 3 nights in a row or something like that, dude. And he goes, "You want a little bit of heaven?" I said, "Yeah." And so I was drinking, and I didn't even ask. And he just goes, "Do you know you hurt really bad?" And I said, "Well, I think so, but I don't know." He goes, "What do you mean you don't know?" I said, "No one ever told me." So he went and got my chart and he read me the all the injuries, you know.
wow, wow,
And
wow.
I was like, "Wow." So that was kind of mind-boggling stuff like that. But soon after I was able to talk, I started to tell my family that I met God at a log. And they would be like, "You sure?" And the one thing they said was there was a lot of blood at a log. There was a log along the road, and I had stopped. They had seen it the next. Not to go back, but my cousin Rich was sheriff at the time. He actually followed my blood trail and found where I fell and all that. So there was a lot of blood at this one log, and they the next day they took pictures and stuff. And because eventually all that stuff disappears, and so I told my to go back. I told my family one at a time. It wasn't like I don't whether it was my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, whoever came in the room on their own. I told them. I was 99.88%, 9% sure I met God, Jesus, whatever you want to say. I met. I was pretty sure, but there was a slight doubt. I mean, I do have a brain injury or head injury,
Right,
and
right.
I was in a coma, right? So it was induced. But anyway, but I told them, one at a time, and they were like, "Oh, you better be sure, before you claim that and stuff. You better be sure." But each one of them said, "Well, there was a lot of blood at the log, so you stopped at a log. You
Right.
definitely stopped there for a little bit." So I said, "All right." So anyway, they had Karen Bridge website. It's a website where you can make uh, pages for people in the when they're sick, they're hurt, something bad,
Right.
and it's a great organization. It's nonprofit, and you can. So they ended up making a page for me, and people would sign on with their email, and then if something new happened, my sister-in-law Marianne and my brother ran it, John, and they would, oh, Jim's out of a coma, and everybody got an email, that something new happened, and then whether you wanted to go look at the page or not.
Right,
So
right.
anyway, they were telling me that all over the world, people were commenting and stuff, my friends and stuff like that all over the world, and how many people are visiting stuff. And so when I got out of the hospital, I went to right to rehab. It's funny. I say, you're really hurt when you show up in a hospital in an ambulance and you leave in an ambulance
Yeah.
to go to a rehab. So that's the way I was. So I went to rehab, and while in rehab, they have computers for the patients and all that. So my brother and sister-in-law said, "Hey, you want to go look at your page?" And I wasn't know if I was ready, but I'm like, "Yeah, okay." To be honest with you, I was getting a little bored though too, because it's like, oh my God, let's go,
Right,
let's
right.
move on. We got things to do, kind of thing. And so we went in, and they read that my neighbor who I knocked on her door, she wrote a message about how God was there with me that night. She didn't know my story yet, but she included God and some other people did. But it was pretty powerful. My neighbor's message made me cry, to be honest with you, right on the spot.
Yeah.
And then my brother says, "Hey, you want to see where it fell?" And I was like, I didn't know if I was ready, but I was like, okay, yeah, all right. And he shows me the picture that's on the website. There's a few of them, but the one he showed me a picture, and in that picture right away was the log I described straight out of the coma
Wow.
where I met God at to a T. I described it to a T, you know, and it was all it. And if you don't believe that God's light was there that midnight, there was no street light, there was no traffic light, there was no moonlight, there was no sunlight, there was no light.
Wow. Wow.
Now,
Wow.
everybody would lay on a log and know they're laying on a log at night, you know, but can you describe it? You know? So I described it straight. So I 100% knew what happened to me that night happened,
It was
and it was
almost
done for me.
it's almost as if you were supposed to recall the contour and the shape of that log in order to be able to do what you just did or to explain what you just did. That's so fascinating because
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
all the pieces were pushing towards you going through this experience to have this spiritual breakthrough, and
Right.
your body had to take the hit in order for your soul to expand.
Yeah. 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 And
That's
and it was gonna it it, little did I know it was gonna blow up. Poof, you know,
yeah.
like
So
go crazy.
all right. So in terms of blowing up, what was some of the any type of increased sensitivities or psychic abilities or intuition that you've gained or have insight into now?
I had horrible intuition before I fell. And one of the things I got was intuition. I ignored it the first time when I finally got out of rehab. I started living my own. Uh, I had this plan. I again go fast forward. I back to back. I love metal detecting. So I had a day off. I was going to go metal detecting. I was going to metal detect all day. And so I got this intuition I was supposed to go somewhere and do something. And I was like, no, I'm going metal detecting. I'm going metal. I went metal detecting. I didn't do the intuition thing because I didn't know it. I
Right.
didn't understand, you know? And so I went, you know, metal detecting had the probably it was an okay day, but probably one of the worst days I've had. You know, just the whole thing was all messed up. My battery wasn't charged right, and it was just screwed up. It was
Right. Right.
screwed
Right.
up. I think it rained on me after a while. It wasn't supposed to rain, but where I was, it started raining. And one of those things got really messed up. So fast forward, I went home and I started to think again. Remember, I'm very small on a great my spirituality and all my understanding. And I started to think, I was like, wow, maybe I was supposed to go do that instead. So I had a plan to go a few weeks later to go do something again. And I woke up and I got this intuition that I'm supposed to go to this brain injury walk. I totally forgot about it. I think I knew very little about it. And I got told it's where it's at, you know, the address, you know, everything just kind of came like boom, 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 you got to go here. And I really wanted to go do the other thing. I forget what it was, but something really like I wanted to go do. And I'm like, last time you did that, things
Yeah.
weren't
Yeah.
too good. So I went I followed my intuition and it was just incredible. Incredible.
Did
I met people I met people that needed to meet me and I met people I needed to meet.
yeah.
It
So
was
interesting.
a,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
dual thing,
That
you know.
the
Uh,
intuition itself, was it a voice you heard other than your higher self, or was it imagery that you received? How would you describe the intuition, as a voice of image or knowing?
it was kind of like more image driven, like in my brain, like you know,
Yeah.
here, you know, this is you know, oh the walk and stuff like that. Like I didn't envision like I'm gonna be walking and I'm gonna meet this person, that person. I just, you know, it was like kind of like I've had a few moments. I got some things I'm working. I got one incredible thing I can't share right now, but it was downloaded in my brain, like boom, there it is. And I've shared it with a few people, and they say it's incredible what you know, got downloaded to me. Boom, it was like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And but there's nothing special, you know, about me. I'm just me, you know. So anyway, that's part of why I had to meet people. Some of the people were, and I got one of them told me later on. I saw them, and they had a brain injury. I'm a very highly functioning brain injury person. I am blessed, like no tomorrow. But I have my deficits, and but I function so highly that you know I'm good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I try to help others, and whenever I can. And this one was at a point they had a fall. They didn't. I don't. Did they fall? Anyway, they had brain injury and stuff, and I inspired them to that they could get better and stuff. The incredible thing about brain injury is every all brain injury people can learn. It's just how bad, how bad, and it's repetitiveness. It's
Right.
doing the same thing over again, and then your brain learns it, and and stuff like that. But I was very lucky. I'm a highly functioning. I could talk. I didn't lose my speech and all that stuff. I
Amazing.
kind of went the orthopedic route for rehab because I had all those broken bones, and I didn't show a lot of brain injury um, deficits. But I have a short term and stuff. But as far as the rest of the stuff goes, when I bring up I have a book for a reason. I
Yeah.
bring it up for a reason, and it was doing well. Everybody I knew, I gave it to them. Everybody else, I don't know, they were buying it. So it's done well. I'm not gonna lie. And so I ended up one night though, I had made some. I was I shared this in the last interview I did, but I made some bad decisions financially that were going to help me in life and help me do things and stuff. And I made some bad decisions. So I was kind of like depressed and like. And the one thing I want to say, all the near the NDE people or anybody who meets God, it doesn't make your life all rosy. Stuff still happens. But I think one of the things that happens is that it helps you uh, look at things a little better and maybe get through it a little easier and stuff. But this bad decisions financially and stuff were hard on me. I'm not gonna lie, it was bad. So I was in a bad spot. And this is after I fell and got hurt and all that stuff. And so I ended up I one night I'm not Mr. Marketing guy and stuff like that. And I went on my Facebook and I'm not very good at that either. And there was a note from a guy from Red Hook, which was near a town near ours, that his friend, she went to our gas station on the way to some meeting, saw the note on the pump about the book, and brought the book and read it and loved it and said to Joe, who owns this cafe, that you got to come. We got to read this book. When you need inspiration, you got to read this book. And by the way, you got to have him as an author, an event.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I opened this thing up. And said, "Hey, I'm Joe. I own a Enchanted Cafe in Red Hook. My friend got your book and read it, and I read it, and you're inspirational. We'd love to do an author event with you. You sell books, I'll sell coffee." So I was like, "Wow, wow, here's something for you." So it's really key to my spirituality. So I went, and the next day I just like I don't know, God downloaded an intuition. It's like, you got to go meet this guy and you just got to go. So I got out of work and I went over, and he was there, and we must have been friends in past lives because I have never met the guy in this life before in my life, and we hugged each other,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it felt as natural could be. A shake and a hug.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just so natural. So we talked and stuff, and he really does good at events and stuff, but he wanted to do mine quicker, so he only advertised one spot. And I was like, yeah, I don't care if two people are in the thing. All it takes is one person to listen to you, and if it helps them, that's all that matters.
Right.
So I said, yeah. So I think we did it within a week or two of the thing, and he did his little flyer, it was good and stuff like that. So the night of the event, it was standing room only. The place was packed.
Wow.
I don't know where these people came from. I have no idea. And one of the key things to this whole thing is before I got hurt and fell, I was a shy guy. If I knew you, I'd talk your ear off once I knew you. But to meet anybody new, or I was afraid of using the phone right before I fell. So here you go from the shy guy. Now, fast forward, I talk to everybody and I don't have no problem doing inspirational speaking and all that stuff. So anyway, so all that people there, it didn't affect me. So I did my spiel,
Yeah.
and I know it's probably bad of me, but I haven't written one speech. Any interview I do, I don't write any notes and stuff like that. I leave it up to the higher power to take it where they want to take it. And
Interesting.
some people say I'm long-winded and stuff and all that stuff, but it always seems somebody comes up in the crowd and says I said something that changed their life and stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, so we did the event. it was standing room only and sold a lot of books and all that stuff. And that's not why I'm telling the story. But even before I got hurt, if you help me out, I don't care, you know, watch my kids or something like that. I'm going to do something for you. That's the way I was taught. That's the way I was brought up. We help each other out. So I'm like, okay, Joe had this wonderful event. We did another event, it was smaller, but there were some people that missed the first one that wanted, to meet me and stuff. So I went back and it was great. It was a lot less people, but it was still great. So so it's a coffee shop. I don't like coffee. So what do? Well, you learn to like coffee. So I started going to the cafe and I would buy a coffee. And then they had these events. And Joe, I think the first time I drank a coffee, Joe goes, you ought to come around for our events. I'm like, events? What are they? He goes, oh, well, we have this law of attraction, and we have the shaman circle, and we have this Reiki healing. I have no idea what any of this stuff was. Oh, and we have the intenders. I don't know if you ever heard of intenders, but
Yeah, yeah,
we have this intenders group. It meets this certain night, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Tell me, I'll try this one. So I started going because he would, there was a little door, little door fee, and then on top of that, I would always buy coffee or something, a little something to eat and stuff. So I started going at all this stuff, and my spirituality went ba boom, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and that that was that was meant for me. That was in my cards,
yeah.
you know,
You
that I
became,
was going to learn.
yeah, you became like a lighthouse for the spiritual realms, giving you the opportunity to broadcast your frequency through your experience to the rest of the community on a small scale, but now on a bigger scale because I heard your story. I found it very fascinating, and it's inspiring to know that there is more to life than what meets the eye. And I think as men specifically, it's sometimes difficult to expose the authentic or intuitive sides of ourselves, the sensitivities that we access through these types of experiences or through traumas or through other ways. Um, but your story is very inspiring. By the way, your book is called "The Miracle on Hammertown Road," correct?
Correct,
Okay, so
correct.
the book could be, where can people uh, purchase that book, or
It's on Amazon. Amazon's the main thing. It's an ebook, uh, paperback book, and it's an Audible book too. And um, it's right there on Amazon. I believe it's on Barnes and Noble too, but and the Nook and stuff like that. But it's
now?
the main people uses
All right,
Amazon.
I'll put that link down below. I wanted to ask you this question: what has this experience that you've had? How has it positively assisted your life? How has it helped you out? How has it added? What has it done for you in a positive way?
A positive way, it's real easy. All these events, you hear all these stories of someone they have a divine intervention or whatever like that, and they weren't very good at uh, they never could paint. They weren't a good artist and stuff like that or whatever. And they have a, near death divine intervention, and then now they're a painter. For me, it turned around to I was a shy guy, like I said before, and it gave me the gift of sociability. And what a world it is. I went from this shy guy, not less, talking on the phone to
Yeah, yeah.
being on T. I've done 3 TV programs. Didn't even know I was on TV, inspirational speak and meeting people. But my favorite thing, to be honest with you, the number one thing, and I don't, it's really, really true, is all the people I meet. And my favorite thing is because of what happened to me. One, if you hear my story, you share your story with me.
Right, right.
But the incredible thing is, you could drop me in a Walmart. And now looking at me, you would never know I got hurt that bad. I used to walk with a cane and,
Wow, wow.
because I was a little dizzy and stuff like that. But now you couldn't tell. You would never know I got hurt that bad. I just looked normal. I have a caved in head, but I have a head of hair, so you can't see it.
Absolutely.
But you could drop me in a Walmart. And not every time. It's not going to be every day it happens to me. and all of a sudden this person will come and start talking to me and tell me this incredible story,
Wow. Wow.
not even knowing mine. It just like attracts, you
Yeah.
know, being that person. And I often wonder if it's because universe knows I'll listen and I'll understand and I won't judge them, you know. So sometimes I think the universe sets it up where, here, this guy's not going to judge that
Yeah.
person. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I, I had this one real quick thing. I was doing this Barnes and Noble. My son goes, my son's a big gamer. He lives with me and my son Logan. And there was this game shop down in Poughkeepsie, and it's in this big like strip mall. And then there's a Barnes and Noble. So I would drop him off at the game shop, and I go to Barnes and Noble, and I would get my computer on. And again, I'm not Mr. Marketing guy, but I'd be like, oh, I got to try to do something to help with the book or something. Anyway, so I go into Barnes and Noble, drop him, you know, I'm in Barnes and Noble, and I go to sit at a table. I had a computer that I need to plug in. It just the battery was bad, and I looked around and there was nothing. There was like they were all taken, except this one guy was sitting there, and there was two tables kind of pushed together. And the old me would have just never done anything, never even asked or anything. I walk up to this guy. Now, literally, it's his table. I said, "Hey, do you mind I sit down with you? I need to plug in my computer and stuff. Do you mind?" Oh, no. He goes, "No, sit down, sit down. I'm just waiting for my wife." So I sit down and I plug my computer in and we talk a little talk. And even that alone is a big deal for me. But anyway, so I'm typing along and I'm just looking up stuff and still don't know what I'm doing. I'm, you know, and I'm typing in and he goes, "So what, you know, what are you doing?" You know, to make small talk. And I said, "Oh, I wrote a book and stuff and, you know, about my, you know, experience and stuff and stuff." He goes, "Oh, the book?" I said, "Yeah." "And what's the title?" "Miracle on Hammertown Road." And I said, "I, you know, had experience, you know,
Wow. Wow.
and I got hurt." He goes like this. He goes, "Hurt? I can relate to that. Here, let me tell you a story." And the guy literally stopped on the road, helped somebody on the road, and got hit, ran over by a car. Got hit by a car. He was in the road. The car hit him, hit his legs, flew him through the air, flipped over, and landed behind in the road and stuff like that. And this guy was telling me this incredible story, and it's like whoa, you know.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
incredible. All those tables and all those people, and the guy that has the little table, kind of like maybe I could sit at, and you know that kind of stuff happens. But it's all the meeting people like you and just all the interview, you know, but just people in general. It just and the stories they share are just incredible. And
Well,
I don't say anything about my stuff. Sometimes I just listen, and I don't even say anything about me. You know.
what's interesting is that you were given the opportunity through a tragedy to become more of who you were supposed to be, and in other words, God put you on the path by having you experience the former life and having you have almost a rebirth of being this new person with this new outlook and this new agenda to fulfill for yourself and for the spiritual realm. So it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
If you could leave the audience with like a message that you'd want them to sit with, what would you tell them about life or about what you
Well,
experienced?
yeah, one of the big I shared in the last one, but a big thing I've grown and I've grown and I've grown and I've grown and I continue to grow every day. And but one of the big things that I shared in the last one, which is through that whole going to the cafe and to all those events, stuff like that, I really learned that you know you get if you think positively, positive things happen. If you think negatively, negative things happen. So, and I heard a great thing. I don't know who said it. I just heard it, and it was so powerful to me. I just kept it in me and stuff. But they say the saying is, if you continue to worry, all you're doing is worrying for the bad things to happen. In other words, if that's all you're focusing on, that's you're praying for them to
Yeah,
happen. That's you're reverse praying, you know. So I so you try to look good because I've had some examples since, and I've learned that but like that money thing, right? I'm just bringing up. I made all those bad decisions. Well, that's all I could think about. Well, guess what? The universe made sure I, you know, lost money over here, lost
right.
money over there. Did this, you know what I mean? Because that's all I could think about.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been quite a lesson to that I learned is that. you know, you think positively and positive things happen. It's really that's been like one of the big eye opener things. And again, it's building blocks. At first, I was a shy guy. I got knocked off the road. Get back on the road.
Yeah.
Oh, now I start to talk to people. And then I talk to people, and then people meet their stories, and then it's like a building block, and then, oh, by the way, think positively. And, like when there's always, most all the time, there's always a silver lining in
Yeah.
everything. Even if it's bad, there's some good in it. And there really is. And if you can focus on the good, you know, it's like my mom. My mom's got stage 4 cancer right now. And, but I have to tell you, if we all thought, oh, poor ma, I don't know, maybe she wouldn't be here, but my mom's doing incredible. And I know eventually it's going to catch up to her and she's not going to be here no more. But let me tell you, we've had some really, really good, good months, since the
Yeah.
diagnosis. So,
Well,
and I'm not saying, but if you think positive for people that you love and if they're going through something bad, think positively for them. You can really give some good healing
yeah,
through the universe.
I think your story is not for the weak-minded or weak-hearted, and I think the people that are not given these opportunities for the spiritual growth are people who would be in victim mindset or victim mentality, and they would find the negative path towards every opportunity that could turn positive. And what you're saying to me and the audience is something inspiring because it gives everybody the idea and the hope that we can manifest and we can create our future with the positive outlook. And you were given that opportunity. And I think many people like yourself, what I've learned is they've learned to surrender and turn these opportunities into something positive, and you've done that. So I want to thank you for sharing your time with me and sharing your story with me because it's inspiring. And by the way, when you said Jabez, I have a Jabez prayer on my desk.
Yeah.
I read it
I,
every
I,
day.
I just love I say it every day. I love that prayer. And the funny thing is, real quick, some people think, oh, you're praying for monetary or
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
but maybe I got it from day one. You're saying, here I am, God, here I am. I'm ready to do your work. What do you want me to do for you? So I joke
Yes.
around. I really think I was meant to get kicked off the road so I could do some good for him before I die.